Hey everyone, welcome back to a brand new episode of Show Me the Crypto. This week we had the pleasure of chatting with Khori Whittaker, who is the Executive Director of Ethereum Name Service. The acronym you may be familiar with is ENS. Ulf, what did you think about our conversation with Khori?
It was awesome. Having Khori on and being able to speak to someone about ENS domains. I mean, we've been a user. We've had showmethecrypto.eth for a long time now, but to actually get someone on to dig into the technology, especially some of the recent upgrades. There was a V3 release that was in the works for a number of years, and there's some really cool features that came out and are part of the technology that I didn't know about, you might not know about. So I think there's some great information here in this episode.
Yeah, this is a quicker conversation than some of our previous episodes. But with that said, we covered a ton of ground in this 30-minute episode. We talk about Khori's background. We dive into what ENS is. Is it just a .eth address or is it more? Khori explains. And as Ulf mentioned, some of the latest V3 upgrades. We think you're going to love this episode.
Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto. Show me the crypto.
In a world on the brink of disruption, two men will bring you clarity by interviewing some of the most intelligent and influential names in the blockchain world. Welcome to Show Me the Crypto with your hosts, Wade Patterson and Ulf Lonergan.
Well, hi there, and welcome to Show Me the Crypto. My name is Wade Patterson.
And I'm Ulf Lonergan.
We're a couple of friends from Canada who love learning about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, and we're happy you're along for the ride. Whether you're a crypto virgin or you know your way around the block, we hope our interviews with some of the most intelligent and influential people in the blockchain space help deliver you with value. And on this episode, we're joined by Khori Whittaker, Executive Director of ENS. Hailing from Jamaica, Khori is a corporate governance expert with 20 years of experience in executive management. In late 2017, Khori discovered Ethereum and eventually joined ENS in May 2022. Earlier this year, Khori published an opinion article in which he wrote, "People are waking up to the fact that they don't own the profiles they have created for themselves online, and it's creating a digital identity crisis. Ethereum Name Service, which maps human-readable names and masks complex hexadecimal Ethereum addresses, aims to help users reclaim their digital sovereignty." Khori, welcome to Show Me the Crypto.
Hey, Wade, Ulf, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you too.
Yeah, we're really excited about this conversation. And before we get into the crypto side of things, I'm curious about your pre-crypto background, because my understanding is it occurred at the intersection of business and education. What can you tell us about what you were doing before Web3?
Yep, sure. So after college, I went into the education space and joined Teach for America and taught fifth grade in Long Beach Unified for a couple of years. And then started working for ed tech related startups and organizations. And then more recently, I ran a network of public charter schools here in the States for 8 or 9 years. So yeah, that's what I've been doing with most of my time, working in the K through 12 space and in the higher education space, supporting institutions, running schools, you name it.
Now, on your Twitter profile, it says two things. One, you're the Executive Director of ENS, and the second is that you're the Director of Central Florida Urban League. So what can you tell us about Central Florida Urban League and that organization?
Oh, cool. Thanks so much for asking. Not many people ask about that. So I'm on the board of directors of Central Florida Urban League, and it is one of the historic civil rights organizations here in the U.S. And our goal in Central Florida is to help the community with education and empowerment and entrepreneurship. So we provide opportunities for the community to learn everything from new skills to help them start businesses, and to help local schools support their students and families better. So it's a community service organization based in Central Florida.
Nice. All right, we'll switch it over into crypto a bit here. What is your your crypto career? Like, how would you paint how you got into it? How did you find crypto? And then how did that lead to your position as Executive Director of ENS?
Yes. So I tell people that I was an early adopter in the digital currency space. Some of you may remember eGold, ePalladium from the early 2000s. So that's kind of, I dipped my toe in the waters at that point.
Yeah, that's going way back. That's OG status.
Yeah. And then when because of my experience then, when Bitcoin came up on the scene, I was skeptical. Right. Ethereum came on the scene, still a little bit skeptical, but very interested in the smart contract aspect of Ethereum. And I was running schools at the time, so I started playing around with building a blockchain-based student information system because I just saw the potential of smart contracts, verifiable credentials, attestations, and all the magical things you can do really with a smart contract that's distributed around the world. And so that really got me interested in the tech. And then I started to do some DJing activities that I wouldn't recommend. Wouldn't recommend at all. For a couple of years. When I was finishing up my time running schools, I decided I wanted to get into tech and into Web3 full time because I had always been an early adopter, always interested in technology. But my career sort of went to the sort of educational entrepreneurship space. So I found my way to Circle, USDC, and ran a project in the talent organization there. And in early 2022, I saw that Nick was looking for an executive director. So Nick Johnson, our founder, looking for an executive director for ENS. So I reached out, and one thing led to another, and here I am, about a year and a month later.
Why were you?
And I got my Khori.eth in 2021, I think, before the DAO was created and all of that. So
nice.
Yeah.
Why were you skeptical about Bitcoin in the beginning? Like you mentioned, like you were a fan of eGold, Bitcoin came out, you were skeptical.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Just, I think part of it, the narrative that was happening, and I wasn't part of a community yet, right? So that's one of the important things about our space here, being embedded in a good community that can give you good information and good influences. So I was sort of outside of a community at that time, and then looking in, and you're hearing all the aspects of what's happening with Bitcoin in terms of illicit transfers of funds, and then also it was just complicated to use 10+ years ago. For those of you who were around back then, and I was very busy. So I didn't have the patience to learn everything at that time. But yeah, because of my experience with eGold, I was like, okay, is this just another fad happening? So that's where some of the skepticism came from.
How do you think your background in education, what you're talking about, everything pre-crypto, how has that benefited you in the Web3 space?
Yeah, and it's really positively tainted my view of what's happening in our space for the need to have better education around what we're doing here. Mm-hmm. And it's also given me a mindset that we have to be much more consumer, customer, individual focused in our space. So last year at DevCon in Bogota, I attended a great session by a product designer in our space. And she was talking about the need for us to start with the end user first, then build, right? So we're really thinking about UI, user experience, and what we're trying to achieve and accomplish with a particular program, app, you name it, and then build a contract. Because what's happening right now is we're building these really cool, technically complex pieces of technology, and then we're trying to slap on a UI, right? We have to reverse that, and then educate people on how to use it properly, right? So I think of my approach as sort of an educational approach. This is the technology. This is how you use it. This is how it helps make your life better.
And on the subject of complex technology, I'm sure there's a lot of complex technology behind ENS. But for someone who, we've kind of been talking about it as because we all know what it is, but for someone who's never heard of ENS, how would you go about describing, just what it is?
Sure. So it's your digital identity. It's your identity on the web that you own, that you possess, that you control. So with the advent of social media, what you found is tons of people flocking to social media sites, Facebook, Twitter. You remember MySpace and Friendster back in the day? You set up your profile, you engage with your friends, you post a ton of content, and you realize that, hey, all this work that you've done on one particular platform, you can't move to other platforms and they can shut you down, and you ultimately don't have control over your identity. And so what ENS does is actually give you control over a digital identity that's used in Web3. So that's one of the major use cases now. It's your name on the web. For our crypto folks in the audience, is when people get into crypto, they're juggling these long addresses. Your Bitcoin address, your Ethereum address. Header is pretty short, right? So kudos to Hedera or the shorter addresses. But typically they're long, complex, unwieldy, hard to handle. And heaven knows how many mistakes have been made in trying to exchange value, send tokens, or et cetera, back and forth, and copying, pasting the wrong address, missing a digit here or there. And due to the nature of the technology, that money is lost. That value is lost. Those coins are lost. But by using a human-readable name, right, instead of that lengthy address, you just use your name.eth. And then you can send and exchange value using your name.eth versus those long addresses. It just makes for a simpler, safer, and more secure way to use Web3. So replacing those lengthy addresses with a human-readable name, wade.eth, off.eth.
And so that's, I think, what most people think of when they hear ENS is those .eth addresses. And as you mentioned, we tried to secure. We've got showmethecrypto.eth. I think I have WadePatterson.eth. But beyond that, is there more to it as well? Like, because I understand that even like traditional domains can utilize .eth addresses and that kind of thing. Like what else is behind ENS as well?
Yes. So the main ENS name that everyone knows is appended with .eth, right? That's the top level domain, the TLD. What we've created is a way to import your DNS into the ENS system. So if you have a .com, if you have a .xyz, you are able to use that as an ENS name. And when you go into the app, you're able to change a few settings. We can make it a little bit easier, and we're working on that. Make it a little bit easier and cheaper, actually, to do that. That new feature should be coming out in the next couple months. So if you do have Wade.com, you can import that into DNS, and just like you use your ENS name to send value to your Ethereum address, your Ripple address, your Bitcoin address, you can use your .com the same way. So I think that's one of the things that people don't realize that we're able to do, but we're able to supercharge your traditional DNS name as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. Is that for like what's the process like if you wanted to go and explore that side of ENS? Can you do that? Does it matter where your existing domain is registered? Is that something where you got to transfer it, or do you just point it at something related to ENS?
Yeah, there are a couple permissions that you have to change in the DNS section of the DNS profile. Mm-hmm. A few things that you need to change to make it compatible and readable on the ENS platform. And we have docs that describe that on the main site.
Have you seen many users taking advantage of that, or is that something that's still maybe relatively unknown?
There are a handful of super users, right? So a handful of people that have gone crazy using their DNS names. One of them is my colleague Luke. So Luke.eth. He also has Luke.computer that he used to use quite often.
Cool.
And then I understand that there were some V3 or a V3 upgrade, as well as an integration with MoonPay recently, or somewhat recently, that happened. What can you tell us about that?
Yes. So we've been working on version 3 for a couple years now, and finally got it across the finish line, and published in April. We wanted to make sure that it was really well done, stay secure. We audited tons of times. And that's what caused some of the delays, just really wanting to make sure that we got as many of the bugs out as we could. But if you purchased your name prior, it might have been a little bit clunky, might have been a little bit unintuitive, and not that great a user experience. But what you find now with the app, that it's actually beautiful. I can use that word. It's a much more beautiful experience. Registering a name, describing what's happening when you're registering the name, setting the number of years that you want it registered for, pointing it to a particular address. Just the flow is much more seamless, and I think much more of a joy to use. And our designer, Domiko.eth, who started with us, Dom Perry, last year, has been leading the effort in design. So just the app is much better now. The main part of version 3 is this function called the name wrapper. And all it is it gives you and organizations, companies, the ability to hand out subdomains, read them, sell them, change permissions on them. And we think that it's going to be one of the ways where ENS names are going to proliferate significantly via the use of subdomains. And one of our colleagues in the DAO, his name's Slovo.eth, is running an organization called Namestone, which makes it easy to create subdomains.
Is there any limits, or what are the main use cases you see in the future for this subdomain feature?
Mm-hmm. So it ranges, in my mind, from the very practical to fun. So let's talk about a practical aspect. So you're running a finance department in a crypto company. You have a CFO, VP of finance. You have a couple controllers, accountants, maybe a payroll and AP clerk. You can assign each of those persons a different subdomain, right? So CFO dot showmethecrypto.e, AP dot showmethecrypto.e, and you can assign specific permissions to each of those subdomains. So if they're going in and you think about approving payments and approving contracts, right? You can shuttle certain approval pathways, and CFO approves some things, your controller approves some things. So labeling in a finance organization is one technical thing that came to mind that I think people could use. On the more fun side, think of, let's say, fan clubs, right? So think of an athlete or a musician. They can create user.eth, create fan clubs, either sell them or give them to their biggest fans, and people can sort of display their names on their Twitter handles or elsewhere, their affinity towards a given person. If you think of sports teams also, I think another great use case is for season ticket holders, who are fanatics about a given team. And if they happen to be crypto natives, wanted to use their subdomain as well.
And I'm just curious with the subdomains, let's say I want to create a bunch of subdomains and give them out to friends or family. I don't know if that's a real use case, but let's just say for the sake of argument here, is there additional cost or anything to create subdomains and handle them, or is it is the only cost the initial ownership of the sort of main domain and the subdomains?
Yeah. So the main cost is with the initial name. Okay. So the off.eth. there may be some gas depending on what you're doing with the subdomains, depending on the kind of permissions you want to give out. But the main cost is with the main domain.
Cool. That's an interesting feature. I could see that being used lots of ways, like you mentioned. And even if it was, say, like a new dApp or something, a wallet could come out, and by joining and utilizing the wallet, you get a subdomain that's like the .wallet.eth or something.
That's right. That's right. So you may remember Coinbase launching their ENS name last fall, cb.it. Each user, that's a subdomain. That's an ENS subdomain. So off.cb.id. So they use the subdomain functionality even before we launched the name wrapper. So
interesting. One thing I'm curious about, Khori, is so Vitalik has talked a little bit about the future of Ethereum, some of the challenges coming up. He dropped a couple blog posts in the last few months. One was called, I believe, The 3 Transitions. And he talked about one of the challenges is that, right now, a lot of people, they maybe have one wallet where they do everything, or maybe they have a couple. But he talked about the future being many people, or people having many wallets over multiple layer 2s and all of that sort of thing, and the challenges that come with that. And he did point to ENS as a potential solution, but he also said there could be some challenges with that as well. For example, a single name almost holding too much or too many connections, too much information, that type of thing. What are your thoughts just on the future of like where Ethereum's going and how ENS's role in ensuring that, if the dynamic changes and people now have hundreds of wallets, how will that fit into ENS's vision?
Yes. So a couple things come to mind with the current ENS implementation. You can add several wallet addresses to your name. Whether that's Ethereum, Bitcoin, Ripple, Litecoin, etc. And I think in the future, yes, there could possibly a future where people have several wallet addresses. I'm sure you guys have several addresses. Yeah. I have several. That's going to be difficult to manage. I think so. I do think that there's a possibility to create a program on sort of wallet management. Also, that's another topic here. Wallet, is that the right term for what we're talking about here? And I think that the future of Ethereum, you want to look at developer activity, right? And there are tons of folks continuing to develop on Ethereum. Conferences happening around the world constantly every month. Hackathons happening, and people are continuing to build on that L1. But there are some challenges with L1 that Vitalik has brought up, and so you started to see the proliferation of L2s to try and deal with speed, to try and deal with cost. So I think you'll continue to see innovation in the space just because there's so much interest and so much activity. My concern is that we don't get too complex. A lot of our conversation right now is just super catered to our little bubble here and our little world. But for mass adoption, the rest of the world really isn't going to care about the things that we may care about. The bells and whistles and features of a given contract, of a given L1 or L2. What they're going to care about is logging into a particular website easily, which we should be able to do with signing in with Ethereum and ENS names. They're going to care about having a seamless user experience. They don't want to do 5, 6, 7 clicks to accomplish a simple task in Web 2, which would only take one or two clicks. So while the ecosystem continues to develop, I think we really have to be careful that we start with the end in mind and think about the user and what do they need.
On that note, like some of what I think going back to some of Wade's question almost touches on privacy, and this also goes back to what you mentioned at the beginning, that ENS is, it's digital identity, and maybe wallets aren't, the right type of words to be using when we're, talking about ENS. So I'm wondering though, with privacy, when a user is using an ENS, they're usually using it to then, share and give out, this is my identity, this is my ENS domain. What about for those, like, we're also talking about wallets and finances, and not everybody wants everyone to have eyes on all their transactions. So how does ENS play into that side of it? Or is there a bit of a separation, and maybe that's an area ENS isn't trying to cater to as much?
Yes. And I know several people, several high profile people that don't really want all their NFTs displayed, like some of us don't really want their transactions as visible, because, the blockchain is completely open. I do know that some people are working on a privacy layer and talking about a privacy layer for Ethereum, for ENS names as well. So that is something that's being talked about, giving people the option, right, of privacy for certain uses of their domain.
So Khori, switching gears here, one last question, and then we're going to kind of get into the final section of every interview. We ask every interview guest on Show Me the Crypto the same 3 questions. So we're going to hit you with those in a second. But before we do that, I have to ask, we've had Unstoppable, or representative from Unstoppable Domains on in the past. And if there's any kind of, not criticism, but challenge, I guess, to ENS from their perspective, is that, when you buy an unstoppable domain, you kind of own that forever, versus the ENS model of you own it, but it's for several years or however that length of time you choose. What is your response to maybe people who say that that's more of kind of like a Web 2 version of how things were done, the renting of it? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so the renting aspect, understood there. One of the things we were trying to make sure that we guarded against was squatting on domains, and also giving other people the opportunity to purchase a domain that they may like. So you have a system that's just sort of locked down forever, if you will, and then a system that provides opportunities when domains expire for people to be able to purchase them. So it just allows for, I think, a little bit more flexibility.
Awesome. Well, Khori, as I mentioned before, this has been a great conversation. We're going to have to get you back on for a part 2, because there's a ton of things we want to ask you. But before we let you go, we really want to ask you the same 3 questions. There's a little segment we call You Had Me at Crypto. Ulf is going to ask you these rapid fire questions.
All right, Khori, you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, first question. Who is your favorite person to follow in the crypto space?
Oh my goodness. So they are hilarious people, really, really hilarious people out there. Let me throw his name out. Gabriel Haynes is hilarious.
I'm not familiar with Gabriel. I got to check out Gabriel.
There are lots of them. So
Yep.
All right. Second question. What will the price of Bitcoin be 10 years from now?
10 years from now. Let's be optimistic here and throw out 100,000. Not financial advice.
Not financial advice. That's right around the average. That's a bear market average guess that we get. So I like it.
Okay.
All right. Third question. What is the most underrated project in crypto?
Underrated project in crypto. Interesting. I'm going to have to say, even though tons of people use this, stablecoins. Stablecoins. I think if we're thinking about wide adoption, right, the pathway there is through something that's simple, that's understandable by the masses. Everyone understands a unit, like a dollar unit. And if we can get to the place where we get governments to allow for better policy and regulatory environment, I think stable coins are the way to help us get mass adoption, because what's more likely, someone buying an NFT or someone using a digital dollar?
Yeah,
So
interesting.
As a first step, right? That just came to mind. But thanks for the question, guys.
Yeah, no
Cheers.
worries. Khori, thank you
Yep.
so much. You have a real talent at being able to take these kind of complex ideas and make it really easy to understand. So thank you so much for joining Ulf and I on this episode of Show Me the Crypto.
All right. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for listening to Show Me the Crypto. Please make sure to subscribe as well as rate and review this podcast.